Well, hello and welcome back to Jones Financial Talk. This is Nick Jones from Jones and Associates Premier Financial Solutions. Listeners, if you'd like more information about what you hear on this fine show today, easy way to do that is just to go right to our website at jonesfinancialtalk.com. You can click on the radio page. There's lots of previous show information on there. You can subscribe to this program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and also Amazon Music. So lots of ways to hear us. And we also have a YouTube channel that Tony and I have created. For those of you who want to click on the YouTube button, you can actually see Tony and I in action on the screen talking together every single week in these radio presentations. The last couple of months we have discussed on this show different topics surrounding enhanced planning. And I'd like to kind of utilize our time today to talk more about enhanced planning and share a couple of tools that our firm specifically uses with our clients. One of those is called the Generational Vault. And this is a highly secure online safe deposit box, basically. And it allows our clients to store lots of things like documents that are very critical, their wills, their healthcare directives, their powers of attorney, and other things all in one location. And so I thought I'd highlight that a little bit more and tell you what you should be doing for not only estate planning, but how you should be storing that information. So let's bring Mr. Shore in. Tony, how are you doing on this fine day?
I am doing great, Nick. Thank you so much for asking and having me on the show today. And yes, for some reason, we're on video now. I've never been able to properly explain myself in the video format. I'm a radio guy. That's why I've been doing radio for 35 years. But now we're on video. So here I am, for better or worse. Listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in, though. And I've had a great week. You know, football's been interesting. I was kind of rooting for the Lions. I always go for the underdog. If my team's not in it, I go for the underdog. But we've got two powerhouses back in it, KC and the 49ers for the Super Bowl. I'm a big NFL fan, so I'll be watching that.
You know, 4 years ago, there was two things happening. One, in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs were playing against the Niners, and obviously they beat them. And two, Trump and Biden were running for president. Both of those things are happening again this year, Tony. Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, that's deja vu. Those are two things I didn't want to have happen. I wanted two other people to run against each other, anybody but those two. And we're not going to get into politics, but and then I would love to see different teams get in the Super Bowl. But that is crazy that we're just this year is just repeating what happened 4 years ago. I never really thought of it that way, but that's nuts.
Kind of interesting.
It is. It is. History repeats itself. They say history never repeats, but it does, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah. Well, hey, you've got a great show lined up for us. I think it's awesome. But how have you been? Have you been busy or meeting with people? What have you been doing?
This year has been good and strong in the markets. We've continued from the fourth quarter's great performance into the first quarter. And, during an election year, typically the market is good. Interest rates are probably going down. We're going to hear from the Fed here soon to see if, what their directions are. That usually is good for the markets. But what that also means is we've got lots of prospects and people calling our firm that want information about what we do.
Sure.
And so, that's one of the reasons why we do our radio show, so we can add some educational experiences to our prospects and clients. And I'm happy to be able to discuss this one today. This is going to be a good one, Tony.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think it is going to be a great discussion. And, you do have a lot of tools there available for your clients. And, of course, for our listeners, if they want to come in and meet with you, you'll show them how to use these tools and strategies they can use. I think that's fantastic. Today, we happen to be talking about enhanced planning or estate planning, legacy planning. And a big part of that is utilizing something you call the Generational Vault. And I love it. I use it. And I think it's great. You can upload anything you want there, photos, videos. There's unlimited storage, so that's fantastic. But you can also keep active financial account information there. You can go in there to check your accounts. I think that's great, like your IRAs. And there's just so much there. It's a combination of simplicity and value, and it can make retirement planning so much easier, can't it?
Yeah, what we're trying to do with this system is obviously put everything into one portal that is secure, online, accessible from anywhere, that you can share with others. Not only with your financial advisor, but also maybe with some family members if you want to. And more importantly, just have a place to store everything that somebody knows where to go if something were to happen to you. And so, there's just lots of things that this system, the generational vault, does in the planning process to make things easier for you when you think about enhanced planning. And maybe the most basic thing that we talk to people about when we're talking about enhanced planning is figuring out the things that you want to give away to other people and what those are. So, simply just going through each room in your house, right? And making a list of all the big things that you own that you think you want to give to people. Yeah. How are people going to know that if you don't write it down? Right. That we
Right.
stress in all of our financial planning, having a written plan and writing things down. And that's kind of the basic step to estate planning. You have to write down all of your belongings, think about who you want to give those items to, and then make sure that it's in a spot that people know where to go to find it. And so lots of our clients upload this list of personal belongings, for instance, into the vault, and they just label it that so that if something happens to them, people know exactly what they wanted to do with their personal property.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and I think making a list like that is an important first step. You have to know what you have and explain what you have so you don't leave your loved ones with a mess. And after your property list is safely stored into the generational vault, I'm guessing the next step is to collect your essential documents, right? Like
Yep.
your
And
financial papers, your powers of attorney, things like that, wills, trusts.
definitely. And there's lots of things that you would be already, sharing with your new financial advisor or financial advisor from time to time. We put all of the documents that are created during our planning process, and any forms that are filled out, all online in one spot to make it easy.
Sure.
As a reminder, some of those critical, retirement documents that you would want to put in there are things like information on your brokerage accounts and 401ks and bank accounts, maybe some life insurance policies. You can even upload your property deeds and records. Other insurance policies like homeowners, auto, long-term care, and health. And Tony, the reason why this is so important is I've seen it so many times. Not only when somebody passes away and their children have to take care of things, but what if the spouse that passes away took care of all these financial, situations for the other spouse? And so, if everything's in one spot and you just show them how to get there and grant them access, it just makes things so much easier. I sit down all the time with clients who have a spouse that has passed, and I'm sitting down usually with who? Their children, right? And when I do that, the children are always asking mom or dad, "Hey, where's this information? Where's that information?" Sometimes it's difficult for them to uncover and figure it out. And so if you have everything in one spot and you give them access to it, it's already taken care of for you.
Yeah, there you go. So I appreciate you talking about that and the different types of things that can go into that account. Your brokerage accounts, your 401k documents, your bank accounts, life insurance policies, all of the things you talked about. All your insurance type policies can go into the generational vault, and that way, God forbid, if something happens to you, you or your spouse, if you have the generational vault, your family will know what to do and where to find everything all in one place. And I think that'll help maintain family harmony. And that's basically what you call enhanced planning, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And another big part of this, Tony, is the debts that you have when you pass away. So I always tell people, if you have any debts, I want you to make a complete list of any debt that you have, who you own money to, tabulate the totals of all that, like what credit cards do you have open, mortgages, auto loans, any other debt sources. And that will really help your beneficiaries clean things up. The most difficult thing for somebody to do as an executor of your estate is deal with all the financial little situations. And if it's not documented easily, it's like they're Sherlock Holmes, right? That they've got to go around and figure out exactly what mom and dad were doing with all their financial records. They might not even know about some things that are outstanding. So the idea is, even if you still have debt, you just think, okay, well, I check my bank accounts on a regular basis, but if something happens to you, nobody's got your cell phone that looks at all the apps that you're looking at to look at your online debt, right? And so you just need to have all that in one spot. That's a big thing that I think people should consider.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. I think that is huge. So, obviously, you want to really make sure that you have the debt paid down, and I think that's a big part of retirement planning and making sure you don't leave your loved ones in a bad situation. And working with somebody like yourself, Nick, can really help with that. It's going to help make this enhanced planning process easier. And I know that you can recommend an estate planning attorney to people to help them with this and through the process of the more complicated items like trusts and wills and powers of attorney. You need an attorney to do those things for you, correct?
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely, and we do partner with many local attorneys as well as some online attorneys to offer great services to our clients in whatever fashion or need that they have for sure. One thing that often comes up when we're talking about enhanced planning also for the kids is you need to tell them about the memberships and affiliations that you might have. You could belong to many different groups or organizations like AARP or the American Legion, for instance. And many of those professional associations that you may be associated with might have living benefits that are tied to those. They might have life insurance or other things. And so if you have been donating time to a specific charity or anything like that, all of those like affiliations and memberships, I want you to also think about creating a list for. But what we're trying to do here is create a simple kind of roadmap for your heirs to follow. That's what enhanced planning is all about. It's yes, you have to have the legal documents in place to actually do everything, but you got to have all of this written down so they have an understanding. If something happened to you today, they can just walk right in the door and understand where you were financially.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's huge, and that is so nice to have everything all in one location, and do that. So, what else do we need to know about this?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different things that we also could add into this site, right?
Sure,
One of the things that we've talked a lot about with estate planning is the basics. So the
sure.
basics that you need to have or want to have uploaded here and useful is your will, your healthcare directives and powers of attorney for the financial side, any insurance documents that you would need to use as well, because for a lot of people, um, they might become incapacitated before they pass away, and you might think that because you created a will and you put it in your safe or you put it in a file cabinet that somebody will find it. But the thing is, a will is not like public information down at the courthouse. If you write a will, that's phenomenal. But if nobody knows where it is and can't find it and doesn't know what to do with what you want, it's impossible to take care of that. The healthcare directive and the power of attorney financially are very, very important when you're still living. And so that's a big thing that you want to also upload into the generational vault for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really, really important. So it seems like a great way to keep all this on track. And, we talked about this a bit, but first, before we go on, there's a lot more to discuss here. Let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you to set up a consultation and see how they can get the generational vault for themselves and get a financial plan and a retirement plan in place.
Yep. Two different ways. You can just go to our website at jonesfinancialtalk.com and request any information on there. You can also just give us a call at 541-500-4321. Be happy to share these different tools with you and walk you through how to use some of them.
Yeah, that's great, Nick. And listeners, again, all you have to do is go to jonesfinancialtalk.com, fill out the contact form. Somebody will get a hold of you and mention that you heard about a financial plan or a retirement plan on the radio show, whether you're viewing it on YouTube, listening to a podcast, or heard it on the radio. Just fill that out. Someone will get right back to you, and then you can set up a consultation to hear more about the generational vault, how you can use that, and how you can get a written plan in place so you know where everything's at for your retirement and have a financial plan going in. I think that's fantastic, Nick. Now, what do you have for us next?
Well, I want to step back and talk for a second here about estate planning and kind of give it a plug because
Sure,
enhance planning really, what I have found is, really in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been so many different changes with tax law because
sure.
of the CARES Act with COVID and everything, and people are looking at their estate planning affairs in a totally different manner. And there's lots of different things that they should be reviewing, and we can help them with that. And so, an example of a reason why you would want to do it, right? Um, a will or a trust, which most people talk about, does not trump designations that you make on retirement accounts or on transfer on death accounts. A lot of people assume, Tony, that they go to an attorney or they go to a financial advisor, like myself, that helps them create those documents if needed. And once the documents are done, everything's complete. That's not the truth, right? You have to think about how you're going to title all of your assets after you create these documents. And a lot of times, depending on the actual account that you're thinking of, or property, I should say, it's going to be titled in different people's in different ways for different reasons. A lot of that today, and the reason why I kind of have talked about it a lot in a lot different shows, is because of the taxation of this. It's changed drastically in the last 5 years or so. So that's something that I just think everybody needs to look at. It's great to store all of your documents in the generational vault, but you also need to review designations from time to time. We talk about that a lot in our reviews with our clients to make sure that they're still, adequate for their needs.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. And I think that's really great. And I know you work alongside attorneys, and there are things you have to do. You definitely want to pick the right attorney and the right administrator. And I know that's something you help your clients with, isn't it?
Let's think about that for sure. So, yes, estate administrators is a big thing here, Tony. I mean, when you're choosing your administrator, you need to consider two very, very important words: responsibility and trustworthiness, right? You
Right.
should be very confident that the person that you select is going to be committed to the wishes that you write down in your trust or your will, and that they are going to use those documents to guide them to do what you wanted them to do, but more importantly, adhere to them. They're going to adhere to those. Many people think that their spouse may be the best choice, but that's not always the case, because an effective administrator, from an estate standpoint, needs to be able to set aside the emotional anxiety that happens when people pass away. And if you've written it out for somebody, they should be able to adequately do that, even if they're not your spouse. Clearly, a big step here, Tony, is making sure that you give your estate administrator access to the generational vault, because that's going to be their roadmap, like I'm saying, to make sure everything is organized the way that you want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really important. You want to make sure you make the right decisions. And I can see the benefit of making sure, hey, a spouse or a child doesn't have to handle paperwork or decision making while they're processing your passing. I mean, that's an emotional time. You want to make sure that they don't have a lot of unnecessary things to deal with at that time. And I've seen it happen so often, you probably have too, where people don't have these things in place. And then it all falls on their family while they're trying to deal with your loss, right?
Definitely. A lot of people say, well, okay, I got a will, I got a trust, or which one do I need? Well, think about this. So creating a will is probably the most important thing that you can do.
Yeah.
This just writes down exactly how you want everything to, be disseminated from your property, right? You can think of a will as a map that clearly illustrates, how you want all of your assets to be dispersed. And I can tell you from professional experience that you don't need a lot of assets for their division to cause lots of anger in your family, and just make it confusing, right? And so a will is often one of the most simple and less expensive ways to have an enhanced plan. And many wills can be written for you for under $1,000, for instance, depending on where you live and how complex your estate is. And so that's just kind of like the basic thing that you need to have in place.
Sure. Sure, and that makes perfect sense. I think it's important for people to have that in place. And, I have a will. My wife and I have a will, and I take comfort from that because I know that my loved ones won't be they won't be left guessing after my
Yep.
passing, right? You want it clearly stated.
Yep, exactly. And once you have stated it, obviously you have to put it into action, right? So you need to sign it, you need to be witnessed, you need to be notarized. And it's obviously extremely important to get your state administrator a copy of that. We do that through the generational vault. Like I mentioned, we usually keep all those documents in our clients' files, and so do they. So, when the need arises, anybody can have access to it very, very quickly.
Yeah. So once you have all the papers and all these different documents uploaded into the generational vault, does that mean you're all done? Or
Great question. No, even if you feel good about everything that you've done, I totally recommend getting a second opinion.
sure.
It's possible that you don't know what you don't know, right? And so financial services professionals are going to be able to help you identify like gaps and necessary steps, but you've got to make sure that you get a second opinion so that everything is done the way that you want it to be done. There's lots of different things that come up when you start thinking about estate planning. Lots of things tie into topics that we discuss on our show, things like long term care insurance and organizing your assets with a specific goal, right? Maybe providing as much tax relief as possible after your death. I mean, in the state of Oregon, estate taxes start at $1 million in this state, around 10%. And so, just titling proper property correctly. And more importantly, just telling your trusted resources, your financial advisor, for instance, what are the big things that are important to you. Those are the types of conversations you should be having with them and getting those second opinions.
Yeah. I think that is important, obviously. So, when we talk about this, I think it brings up a lot of questions. You want someone, a quarterback who's looking at the big picture, or a coach like yourself would be a better analogy, who is looking at everything and can help you make sure you have all the pieces to the puzzle. Things that the estate planning attorney needs to do, things from a financial standpoint. So that is huge. So anyway, what I'm saying here is our listeners need a financial professional like yourself. So how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Yep. So just two ways, listeners. Easiest way is just to go to jonesfinancialtalk.com, or you can pick up the phone and give us a call at 541-500-4321. Easy way to get a hold of us as well.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. And, there's a lot to this. Estate planning is a big deal, and it's a part of the overall enhanced planning, isn't it?
It is, and Tony, one thing I tell a lot of people is you need to simplify your finances as much as you possibly can,
Yes.
right? That's a huge valuable part of any enhanced planning process. If you're like lots of Americans, you've switched jobs multiple times during your career. That may mean that you've got multiple 401ks and IRAs kind of all over the place. And if you consolidate those various accounts into just one account, right, you're going to make things simpler for yourself. You're probably going to cut expenses. You're definitely going to streamline your enhanced planning process. And so that's a big, big step. Another thing that's difficult maybe to mention to people, but is crucial, is procrastination is something that always hurts in this part of the enhanced planning process. Most of us obviously don't want to think and talk about dying. So it's very, very easy to see why so many people delay meeting with somebody like myself or an attorney to build an enhanced plan, right? The
Right.
truth of the matter is, though, like procrastination is going to come with some lasting consequences. And so if you don't have an enhanced plan, it's just going to hurt the people more that you're trying to help ultimately. And so, things like a very, very ugly tax bill or fights with family members are definitely something that happen from time to time. And I know that this process is extremely overwhelming. The reason why we're doing shows on this and the reason why I talk about it so much is because it's so overwhelming. It takes a lot to think about. but you got to get it right. And you've got to make sure that you're reviewing it with somebody. And you've got to make sure that once you're reviewing it and you come up with a plan, that you're documenting it and that you're organizing it in a fashion that can be useful. That's the
Yeah.
whole point of the show.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. And I think that obviously the generational vault does a lot. And I think we've had a great conversation so far about it. It can help make this enhanced planning process so much easier. I'm eager to hear more, though. What's something else that our listeners should know about that they need to do and that maybe the generational vault helps with?
So more of a new technology thing, maybe, right? On this front, Tony. There's lots of things you can do inside the vault and upload things into there. One thing that you can do is you could take the option to record what I call, a legacy for loved ones video and record your wishes on a video that they're going to be able to read. And I'm very, very proud to offer that to our clients because it's a wonderful way for them to offer that one final message to their loved ones so that those loved ones can return to it time and time again. And the
Yeah.
best part is all you need to do is sit down, hit record, share what's on your mind and in your heart. And if you want to be detailed about what you want people to have, great. It provides all the time, that you might need to carefully explain why you made the decisions that you did, or simply just leave a message for the people that you want to see it, right? And explain to them what's going on. And so I think that would be a very powerful legacy tool that we could build into the website, the Generational Vault, so that your grandkids can enjoy things that you left to them in your mind. A lot of times when people think about what they want to leave to people, it's kind of a mystery, right? Like, I mean, in our situation here today, listeners, you know this about Tony. How many records do you have, Tony?
I
You know,
have about 4,000,
right? So, I mean, I'll tell
4,500
you
records.
this. I might have 20 records that I really cherish and like, okay, today, but I don't know if my kids will appreciate it. I know who will appreciate it if something happened to me. It'd be Mr. Tony Shore. And so,
Yeah.
if what I'm trying to, the point I'm trying to make here is to personalize things and explain yourself in video format sometimes is easier than in writing. And so if you want to take us up on that offer, that's one thing you can definitely do.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, you had to bring up my record collection. I'm not a hoarder if it's alphabetized and kept neatly, right? And if I actually use them and listen to them. That's what
That's
I
right.
tell my wife anyway.
That's right.
But yeah, I have quite a valuable. I have 10,000 CDs and close to 5,000 albums.
My gosh.
But I buy and sell. I sell a lot and I buy a lot also. But I appreciate that. Now, this is a great topic. And again, you don't charge for your generational vault for access to this, do you, for your client?
No. I mean, clearly, this is the way that we communicate with our clients on an easy basis.
Yeah,
They're able to enter in the documents that we need to do sufficient planning for them up
sure.
front and along the way. But they get this great resource for free that never goes
Yeah,
away, that
it's
is
awesome.
completely accessible. So it's
Yeah.
great.
It's awesome. Well, I really appreciate it, Nick. And we're out of time, though, for today's show. Let our listeners know one more time how they can get a hold of you to set up that no charge consultation so they can get started on a financial and retirement plan that will include enhanced planning and the generational vault.
Sure thing. Just go to jonesfinancialtalk.com or give us a call locally here in the Rogue Valley at 541-500-4321.
All right. I like it. An easy number, 500-4321. You couldn't ask for a better phone number than that, Nick.
It's a good one.
And listeners, thanks for tuning in, watching, or listening to today's show. That does it for Jones Financial Talk with our host, Nick Jones.